Yeah, sometimes people have a need to kind of beat their chests and kind of tell you how smart they are, indirectly, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And so here, it concerns me for some colleagues who are struggling with this exam, and then they meet a colleague who tells them, oh, you know, this is really just a Psych 101 textbook,
Mm-hmm.
or all you have to do is, and they simplify the task. So I want to be fair. I want to put honest information out there that just says, hey, this is a very serious and significant task. Of course it is. It takes hours. We had measured this in AATBS, and we had come up with approximately, currently now, 300 hours.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I say currently is because in the past, some years ago, when I looked at this, we were finding 250 hours was, some years ago, the level that was the mean, and the mean number of hours have gone up, but materials have also broadened as the test has broadened, and so there's more material to study now. If you had kind of a set of material, and
mm-hmm.
they used to be produced, as you know, in written form,
mm-hmm.
if you go back years ago, the materials were less, and if you go back a lot of years ago, they were a lot less, and so
mm-hmm.
there has been expansion of the domains and the range of information
That's
on
right.
the EPPP, and that takes time. It takes hours, and so one thing I want to say to colleagues is be really very serious with the amount of hours. The study that I'm referencing that I participated in really tried to look at people in 30-hour clusters, meaning if you studied 210 hours, we tried to view you compared to people who studied 240 hours,
mm-hmm.
compared to 270 hours, compared to 300 hours. And the finding
mm-hmm.
was interesting. Every 30-hour incremental group that went up had a higher pass rate than the group before it. And
mm-hmm.
maybe that just sounds like common sense, but when you see it laid out with a large N,
mm-hmm.
it's compelling.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes people will say, Mike, I'm worried I'm studying too much. Well, this study said, don't worry about that. The more hours you have, the better you're sort of have statistically to be in a higher pass rate than the 30-hour group below. And in that study, that was a part of we were trying to measure the workshop versus independent studying. And by the way, originally there was supposed to be a third cell, and the third cell, C-E-L-L, was supposed to be comprised of colleagues who had not used preparatory materials. I couldn't get an N. I couldn't find people that took this exam without buying something on the internet, using some materials. Schools sometimes have in the library a set of materials. I mean, somewhere they were getting preparatory materials. And so it really ended up being just 2 cells, and we looked at, within those 2 cells, how many hours. And one finding that seemed pretty clear was more hours of study, better performance. And so sometimes that's debunking a myth, because some people think that you don't need or there's a limit or ceiling to that study effect. We didn't see that. So I encourage colleagues to really get very, very serious about this, very organized, and be the very best professional student. Get into it, try to enjoy it, but get into it and make it the highest priority. That is one, for me, myth that I would like to speak to, and it's be careful of the end of one voice. Perhaps if I look beyond that, I would say that there are assumptions that people make about themselves and this exam that sometimes I think are mythical. Like, I have many colleagues I've come across that tell me they can't do the statistics, or they can't sometimes test construction, but the stats is really, if there is such a thing. And I looked, by the way, in the DSM-5, and they didn't put it, stats phobia. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a compelling entry that didn't make it. And yeah, I think that that's a myth, because I am certain that people can take themselves, maybe not be a statistical expert. And I got to tell you, having gone through this program and studied in the 80s, I don't know that I've used a Mann-Whitney U-test at any point in my career, but I certainly was able to learn that formula for this exam as an example. And people can do it. It's doable, and it's not nearly as toxic as I think a lot of people come in, and they come to the workshop. Sometimes I think they enjoy the workshop because their expectations are incredibly low. And so they go, oh my gosh, I actually enjoyed part of the workshop. And I think I'm really helped because people come in really expecting very little. Maybe that's the secret to happiness in life, is low expectations.
Maybe it is, Mike. You know, I have to throw something at you or at our viewers for just a moment, because I'm thinking how, when I was referring to that marketing piece sent up by that one particular company, our mock exams are all listed online. They're in a password protected area, as you know. And of course, we can go in and rewrite questions, change questions at any given time. And as some of our viewers may or may not know, here at our plant, we actually print and bind all of our books, which means we can also do print on demand. We can get a revision out either online or by postal or UPS or FedEx to all of our current customers if there's something new and earth-shattering. But the reality is the DSM-5 doesn't really come into play until the summer of next year. We don't know to what degree it's going to play in terms of how much it will change the questions you will see. No one can be certain of that, and I would encourage viewers to take anything you hear about the test changing due to the DSM-5, I would take it with a grain of salt. We don't know yet, and if we don't know, I can assure you no one else knows, because as Mike points out, with well over 30 employees, almost a third of them who are dedicated to doing research and writing, I can assure you, if there's going to be something, some significant shift on the exam, one, it would be made public, and two, we would know about it the day it's posted publicly, and we would inform all of our current customers, as well as those who visit our website, because I think that as people go to our website in the months to come, because we're going through some changes, we want to make sure that there's as much current information there, because I don't think, Mike, it's good for folks to rely on kind of sketchy information. Just because someone attended one of our workshops and used our materials doesn't make them an expert. You've been doing this for many, many years. You have stood in front of thousands of individuals who we have stacks and stacks of letters, and of course we get all of the feedback reports from every single workshop. So I really take issue with the idea that you can learn everything online. I don't know about you, but there's still a lot of people that need to read. Would you agree with me that just going through mock exam items is not enough in order to master the key concepts? Because doesn't that mean you're just memorizing answers to questions to some degree?
So several thoughts come my way with those comments. Let me start with your last one. I would encourage people to work really hard on their testing, and if they're taking Test Master and Test Pro, there's two really great products they can work hard at. I would agree that is not sufficient. I am a huge proponent of the workshop, and I discussed this on other video moments, our workshop, but I would also tell you that the workshop is not enough. So I think that it takes a reading of the material, a working of the material, a working of the test questions, and then I believe the test workshop gives you an advantage, and I believe that we have an empirically based statement behind that. And I like putting those ingredients together as a minimum necessary package for people to have the requisite background to pass this exam.